Dear Brothers, what's up, boys? As a reminder, link to Dear Brothers merchandise is going to be in the show, and I'll post it on socials and all that good stuff. So we're going to get into a topic today that I was kind of wrestling with recently, and I'm going to kind of share my thoughts on. And a big part of this was that we've made it very easy for us to say that we hate another man. Like you see it on social media, you see it amongst friends. I hate this guy, screw that guy, F that guy. You know, we say that we hate very, very easily. We talk about just hating other men all the time. And I think a part of that is just because it's become because it's used so much, the word loses its luster. And so I think it's still high time that we kind of assess the undertones of saying that we hate another. And this is a concept that I have personally struggled with immensely since I was a teenager. At that time, certainly after my dad got sick, I was just full of hate and rage, and certainly a lot of judgment that seemed to radiate into my later years and even into graduate school. And part of this is that I looked in the mirror and just hated what was looking back at me. I felt like this kind of foul creature. And I showed a lot of contempt for others because it made me feel a lot better about my own inequities and problems. And that time in my life really led me away from God, my actions, my sin. And I justified it by kicking him to the curb and looking at other people's blemishes as kind of a salve for my own, which I admit is a poor choice. But, I was considering all of this recently, and I kind of came up with some ideas that I want to run by you guys. I have watched close friends do terrible acts, but in my heart of hearts, I knew that they were good people. I perceived them as good people, and I didn't know what to do about the fact that they'd done something so bad. I've watched family members perform the very sins they told me never to commit. Certainly looked in the mirror at myself, knowing that I had performed an abomination of actions and wondering how on earth God could still show someone like me love. And to that end, grace. But I reminded myself that we are all made in God's image, unique and beautiful and special. And further along that line, he gave us the ability to choose on earth between right and wrong, and in simpler terms, to sin and not to sin, to choose him or to choose the opposite. And we know that by Christ's sacrifice on the cross, which we just celebrated, we're given the opportunity at life. We're given that grace. One of my favorite Bible verses is John 1:16, where it says, "For from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace." And so there are two big aspects that I want to kind of lead our conversation with today and discuss that I hope you guys find some good stuff out of. First part is this. We are all made as beautiful creations in God's eyes, yet we stray from him, or as we stray from him, or we are straying from him as we embrace our worldly selves. That God indeed hates that we would stray from his grace, from his protection, from his love. It's like a son denouncing his father or going against his word or doing something wrong. He's angered. God is angered by our stupidity. But nonetheless, we have a choice. Our choice is allowed. God does hate the sin. And although the sinner is his child, there is a disappointment. And even per the words of the Bible, some hate towards the sinner, towards you and me. Like we've put a cloak over the masterful painting that God created. Any sin is an affront to God's holiness and can't be in his presence. That doesn't mean that we or the man that has sinned is not loved, but the current disfigured creature that he is abhorrent in God's eyes. In that same line, we should also hate the ill behavior of others, of our brothers. David alludes to this in Psalm 139. And that any behavior that shows contempt for God, any action which God hates, we should certainly not be approving of. Should we empathize with brothers who have done wrong, who have wronged others or sinned? Of course. Because which one of us is able to say that we've never done anything wrong, never sinned? I'm a firm believer that we had better take a long look in the mirror before we begin judging another man's sins. However, we should also not use empathy to justify what another man does. Just like we shouldn't use the fact that other people sin as a justification for our own sin. That's not how this works. Sin, doing wrong, is still below God. It is repulsive to him. It doesn't allow you to become the best man you can be. In fact, it thwarts it completely. I like looking at it like this. It is repulsive to be enslaved by sin. It is below the heroic man, below the good man. But this leads me to the second part of this. The first part is that God hates sin and imparts the sinner. The figure that is sinning is bad in his eyes. And it should also be hated in part by us. But the second part of this is that, like a good father who's been wronged by his child, God still sits at the door waiting for his son to come back to him. His grace never falters. His acceptance of you back into his household never disappears. The offer is always available, but the aspects which he hates, the sin, have to be parted with. And something really vital for all of us to understand today, guys, is that, and it took me a long time to accept this myself, God seeks a relationship with you. He wants to be with his son. He wants to guide you, to love you, to help you navigate life, to create friendships, to enjoy a wonderful marriage, to have beautiful children, to suffer well, to fight, to be strong. He wants to be a part of that. There's no greater relationship you can have, and it took me forever to get that into my stupid skull. But even when I pray now, I pray like he's a father, like he's dad, and I'm not, like we can go chat on the, porch or something. But we stop that relationship. We put a stopper on that relationship every time we decide to sin, knowing full well we are in the wrong. And you guys know that this podcast is driven around men coming together to sharpen each other. Proverbs 27:17 is our motto. And we need to be the brothers that build each other up. But part of that comes down to looking at our own sins first, and then looking at the sins of our brothers. And this is going to be a tough pill to swallow maybe, but we can't accept other men's sins as being okay. They aren't. Too many of us today justify our friends' failings and try to make them feel better about the fact that they have screwed up. That can't be our attack. We must ensure that our brothers know that their sin is gross. It's repulsive. It's wrong. But in that same breath, we can also let them know that there is a road out through love. Remember, love is not just hugs and attaboys. Love is the hard truths that we are not living up to what God has called us to be. We are not being heroic. It is beneath good men to lust, to lie, to steal, to cheat, to be lethargic, to be sloppy. So yes, we must hate that behavior always, in ourselves and in others. We must loathe that part of us that seeks worldly nonsense. But we must also realize that there is grace that can be found in Christ. There is a home waiting for us. I think about having like a couple of rocking chairs out on the deck looking out over the mountains where you and God can just sit together and talk, where father and son can be together. You can ask, what can I do better? Where can I improve? I'm sorry for what I have done. I've screwed up. I'm surrendering my sins to you. I am repenting. Please forgive me for what I've done. Just like you would to your dad if you've wronged him in your life, which all of you have. And understand this too, you're probably going to do it again. You're going to fail again. We obviously want to try to avoid sin as best as is possible. The less of it, the better. There's no right amount. 0 is the best. But there's going to come a day when we're probably going to screw up again. But remember, that is still a stain on your soul. It is still a sign of repulsion to God. It is still a scar on your soul. But remember that God's still going to be sitting there when you come back. He's going to be there to love you. We should also do the same thing for other men, guys. Loathe entirely, hate their misgivings. Don't justify them. But you can still love the man. Love him so much that you're willing to let him know that there is a better road, a righteous road, a road that's going to be hard, but in the end is far more beautiful. The ending of the journey that is just full of sin and nihilism is not a good one, guys. It might feel easy while we're here, but in the end, that ain't the road. The road where we have to say, hey, it's beneath me. It's beneath a heroic man that God has called me to be to do all of this, and I'm going to seek him more to be as best as I can while I'm here on earth. That's really my musing for today, fellas. I hope that you guys get something out of that. Think on that for yourself, but remember, hate the behavior and love the man. Seek God every step of the way. I love you all. God bless. Be strong. Let's get after it today. Go get you some sweet Dear Brothers merch. We'll see y'all.